On the left is a guy named Hemant Mehta, and on the right is Jonathan Shelley, I think his name is. Shelley is a leader in the NIFB. The NIFB is an extremist cult that hates gay people. I mean, over the top. Here's just one example of another NIFB preacher giving his thoughts on the LGBT community.
We know there have always been homos. We know they have always been around.
You notice he's pronouncing it like almost, like Edward James Olmos.
We've read the book of Genesis, okay? Nobody's saying they're never around, but there was a time when society, when our country saw them for what they were and they put them in their place 6 feet under.
That's fucking psychotic. Seriously. What is wrong with somebody who comes to these conclusions? Anyway, that's the NIFB. That's the general sentiment through the entire organization. They go door knocking and everything. It's a full-blown extremist cult. I do not say that lightly. So anyway, let's give this a listen and see what they have to say here, because Hemant Mehta, an atheist on the left, dude wrote the foreword to my book, sat down to have a conversation with him. Found it to be interesting. By the way, this is not part one. If you haven't seen the other, don't sweat it. This stands independently of the rest. I'll give context if it's missing. While we listen to this, we're going to play some Breath of the Wild 2, Tears of the Kingdom. Should just be in the background. Won't bother you too much. You never played before. In the previous part, they were talking about how the things that these people say lead to direct violence. And Hemant Mehta came with an example. He pointed out this one specific person who made direct threats to somebody's life and was caught and was prevented from, doing anything psychotic, obviously, luckily. But, that's like a direct threat of violence. I don't know how else to interpret this. And this guy is excusing it away while saying that gay people are all people who take advantage of children. They cannot be trusted around children. Gay people can't, because they all do it. So he's doing this special pleading argument, is what it's called. I've been looking for an opportunity to bring the special pleading argument out. Special pleading is where you forgive it for one side, but zero in on it for the other side. Basically, you give special conditions and special favor to one side. So anyway, that's what we're walking into right now.
Say hate preacher says, all gays should be killed, we never say gays.
Okay.
We say but.
And they're laughing. Man, I am so glad that Hemant Mehta censored this. What is wrong with these people? This should just tell you something about how they feel, right? This should make it pretty clear if it wasn't before.
All gays should be killed, we never say gays. We say but.
How come you can dismiss that so easily, though?
Because I don't teach that. I mean, Pastor Anderson's been a pastor for 18.
He's saying he doesn't teach that gay people should be killed. He does teach that, though. Steven Anderson teaches it, too. If you don't know Steven Anderson, if you're just, walking into this completely blind, let me find, there's one clip here. Hang on.
You know what? No. Have you always hated?
Oh, this is risky. Should I play this stuff on stream? I'm going to. I think there are some slurs in here, but they're not, it's for educational purposes. I think it's important that we understand what the context here is. Hold on.
In honor, no. Have you, first, let me, have you,
kid's son is a Nazi, a full-blown Nazi. I don't mean I'm being hyperbolic because I'm on the left and I don't like people. No, I mean he's a Nazi. He got a Nazi symbol tattooed on him. Anyway, listen to what he had to say. This is a little bit of an older one. This was from 2014.
No hope will ever be allowed on this church as long as I'm the pastor here. Never!
Are gay people vying for positions in his church? Here's another example, USA Today. I mean, Steven Anderson is the founder of the NIFB. He's the creator, the owner, the church planter, if you will. And he's very clearly psychotic, deep problems. Prays for the death of his enemies, prays for the death of Barack Obama, for example, and gay people, of course.
Have you always hated gay people? Is it something your father taught you, or is it something that you came to on your own?
See, this would normally be considered a gotcha question, right? Oh, I see what you're doing there. I'm not saying that I hate gay people. Any Republican politician would say this. But Steven Anderson embraces it.
No, I haven't always. I grew up in a Christian home, but it wasn't until I read the Bible cover to cover at age 17 that I discovered the truth of what the Bible really says, because a lot of passages don't ever get preached from the pulpit because they're simply not popular.
I have to be honest, when I heard your sermon, it sounded like the rantings of someone who was either a hate monger or a religious zealot, and I'm wondering, which are you?
Once again, sounds like a gotcha question, right? It's not.
Well, I'm a religious zealot, and, I love the Bible. I love God's Word. I believe that the law of the Lord is perfect. And, Leviticus 20:13 clearly says, if a man also lie with mankind as he lieth with the woman, both of them have committed an abomination, they shall surely be put to death, their blood shall be upon them.
Is he reading the section that contains the laws about eating pork and shellfish and wearing cotton and linen blends? Is that in there anywhere? Why is he looking at the Old Testament? Christians follow the New Testament, not the Old Testament. Jesus fulfilled the old law, remember? None of that matters. You know why? He's looking for an excuse to hate people. He's looking for a reason to spread violent rhetoric about others. It's just wild to me that he's willing to go this low. Quick interjection, this won't take long, I promise. I'd appreciate it if you watched to the end of the video, or at least a couple extra seconds, because YouTube bases its algorithm off of watch time. The more watch time a video has, the further the video will go. Also, take a look at my website, owenmorgan.com. I'm selling my book, Understanding Jehovah's Witnesses, 400 pages, and my second book, 100 Questions for Jehovah's Witnesses, which is about 80 pages. And you can find them both there on the website. Audio form, ebook form, whatever. It's about my experiences within the religion and the history of the religion generally. The 100 questions are intended to challenge your religious leader, so I'd appreciate it if you give it a read. Okay, back to the video.
And, as a Christian, I believe the Bible, and that's where I get my belief.
Doesn't the 10 Commandment, isn't the first commandment, thou shalt not kill?
No, the first commandment is thou shalt have no other gods before me.
Okay.
But, of course...
Is thou shalt not kill one of the commandments?
Yes, it is, but... what you have to understand is that the Bible commands that certain people be put to death, not by me, not by Christians. It's obviously not my job or the job.
Wait, not by Christians, you say?
Of any Christian to go out and kill anybody, and I've never taught anything like that. But rather that the government's job is to punish criminals and to execute those.
Like, why is he even playing coy here? Just come out and say it. You want gay people dead, and don't add any qualifiers like, oh, I'm not saying I'm going to do it. Just be honest about it. That's what these people are doing in this. Anyway, just keep listening here.
Because I don't teach that. I mean, Pastor Anderson...
Sorry, step back.
That so easily, though.
Because I don't teach that. I mean, Pastor Anderson's been a pastor for 18 years, okay? Has anybody of his congregation ever committed any crimes like these?
But are we just...
Well, Hemant Mehta just listed an example of a crime being committed by one of the NIFB members. And this guy is saying, well, what about this very narrow, specific categorization? It's like, why are you narrowing the field? This is called shifting the goalposts. Hold on, I'm just trying to pull this thing up because I missed the super chat here. Not expecting the friendly atheist to talk to these guys. Was very surprised. He handled it a lot better than I would have. Yeah, I wasn't expecting that either. Wow, right? That's crazy.
Just waiting for someone to do it then?
But you're assuming this is going to happen, and so you put these...
He's pretending that the hateful rhetoric that they lay down is not likely to lead to extremist action when we've seen extremist violent action take place as a result, a direct result of their rhetoric.
Clips on, and you say, hate preacher says, all gays should be killed, we never say gays, we say but...
He probably doesn't want to get censored.
Right,
in all fairness.
Oh, okay, but like you
or
say,
use an offensive word.
With all due respect, you're saying I'm just quoting you, but we don't say that. You say all gays should be murdered, or you'll say things like that, and that's not what we're saying. Do you know the difference?
No, he is saying that. He does want all gay people to be murdered. What is he equivocating between the word murder and execute right now?
Between capital punishment and murder. Do you know the difference? Can you define?
I want to go back to that too. Sorry, I'm not done with the previous point yet.
It's okay. Yeah.
We'll get to that. But
this just drives me insane. It's like if an extremist, a capital rioter who is neck deep in pro-Trump extremist posts, like the Donald subreddit, patriots.win now. That's an extremist website. I don't mean like, wow, they're crazy. I mean, they're violent. They are willing to do psychotic things to accomplish their goals. He's pretending his people aren't going to be more likely, more predisposed to commit violent action when he endorses violent action.
I'm not done with the previous
it's okay,
point
it's
yet.
okay, yeah.
We'll get to that. But like, okay,
I
this
want
is
you to
something.
come back and answer that, though, please.
Sure. Yes. In that same year that guy was arrested,
Talking about the Pulse nightclub attacker, dude took out like 40 people or something like that. It was a massive massacre. And these people on screen here, why did I drop this? These people on screen celebrate it. They celebrate it every year. They held a conference, the Make America Straight Again conference. They held that conference on the anniversary of the Pulse nightclub attack. How else are we supposed to take this? But that you want gay people dead. In fact, they even say it. Why is he playing coy here? Just be honest. I don't think God would appreciate him pretending not to want gay people dead. Quick interjection. This won't take long, I promise. I just want to say I'd appreciate it if you check my Patreon. OwenMorgan.com/Patreon to find it. YouTube's algorithm goes up and down, so I can never predict where it's going to be. Having patrons gives me some level of stability. Okay, back to the video.
Before he did anything, there was a shooting in Colorado at Club Q, a gay bar. I have that quote too. Like, am I sad that 5 homos got shot? No, I'm not sad at all. I think it's a good thing they're not here anymore to molest kids. That was your
oh yeah, that's what this guy said. That's what this guy said after the Club Q attack. I don't know if you guys remember that. The kid was, I don't remember. I think some people lost their lives, but the kid was apprehended. Basically, he was detained by the attendees of the club, if you will, and he was charged with a crime. And later on, they found his dad, and his dad had some psychotic stuff to say. This is the Club Q thing, if you guys don't remember this. This guy, actually, this is the dad of the Club Q attacker. Hilariously, he was on a bunch of courtroom TV shows, like, small claims, like Judge Judy or Judge Joe Brown or whatever, daytime courtroom TV shows. He was on those like 4 different times or something, suing people. And it turns out that he was just like fabricating these cases to get paid. He's fabricating his unhappiness or his upset with his neighbor so they could both get a payday. Anyway. Oh, he's also an adult film actor, if you will. But listen to what he had to say after he found out his son did all this heinous stuff.
There was a shooting involving, multiple people. Right. And then later on going to find it's a gay bar.
Yeah.
Says there was an attack, multiple people, and then he finds out it was a gay bar.
Later on going to find it's a gay bar.
Yeah, right. And
I was like, oh my God, is he gay? I was scared. Oh my God, is he gay? And he's not gay. So
he's okay with his son being an attacker, or let me rephrase, he's more okay with his son being an attacker who takes people's lives than being gay. That's who this guy on screen, Hemant Mehta, that's who he's praising. That's who we're dealing with here. Here's another one from him.
I praised him for violent behavior really early. It's something that works. It's instant, and you'll get immediate results. And you'll always give you ones who are good at fighting.
Had you taught him more
Always praise him for violent behavior. It's instant and it gets immediate results. Wow.
tolerance? Let me be direct. Do you think, he would have been more tolerant of gay people? Apparently.
I think that my anti-gay, anti-Semitic, they call conservative writing of conservative extraordinaire, and I've been very vocal about that. I support Randy Vopel for his grandfather. I love Randy Vopel.
Randy Vopel is the shooter's grandfather. My God.
A good American, hopefully he'll be president someday.
Randy who?
Randy Vopel.
Randy Vopel. Randy.
That's a good man right there. That's the best man for the job. It was okay to be gay. It's like he says, now it's like it's cool to be gay. It's not. I think it's not cool at all. I think it's my opinion about gays is it's just not okay. I think we should stand up against homosexuality.
Anyway, that's the Club Q thing, if you guys didn't remember that.
Well, you guys had conversations about that. You were.
Oh, yeah.
You
I was
told him. Yeah, you were adamant that gay is bad.
I'm a Mormon.
He's a Mormon. I love it, dude. He says he's a Mormon. No, you're not. You may identify that way, but the Mormon church does not accept you. Not like this. It's like claiming he's a Jehovah's Witness. Like, I don't like Jehovah's Witness. Look, I don't like the Jehovah's Witness religion any more than anybody else, or the Mormon religion any more than anyone else, but they would not accept somebody like this. He'd have to conform to their ideals and personality. And he simply does not at all.
You were.
Oh, yeah,
you
I was adamant
told him.
about it.
Yeah, you were adamant that gay
I
is,
was adamant
gay
this
is
ain't
bad.
happening. I'm a Mormon. I'm a conservative Republican. And we don't do gay.
Yeah.
We don't do gay.
Yeah.
I can't get answers from the attorneys really, but they're saying that some of these, it's involving a gay bar or some shit. I don't know. I don't know what the heck you do if you have a gay bar. I don't know what's going on.
Well, he's accused of going on a mass shooting at a gay bar and killing 5 people.
Colorado Springs.
Okay, well, that's shit. If he's accused of doing that, I'm glad he's not gay. I say that, but I'm glad he's not gay.
That is insane. It's disturbing that we have people like that in our country, right? These people praised the kid who did it, and presumably the father. Who knows? Maybe the father watches these people.
I think it's a good thing they're not here anymore to kids. That was your exact quote. But again, first of all, those victims were not the victims there. They were not drag performers. Not that I think there was anything wrong with that. The event was for adults specifically. There was no evidence those victims did anything wrong. But again, the thing I'm quoting here is that you're happy to see that they're dead.
Who committed the crime?
I don't remember in that one.
It was a
No, he wasn't. My God, dude. I remember this. The kid claimed to be non-binary so that he would get out of a hate crime charge. He was trolling people. And it was so blatantly obvious. I can't believe these people fell for it. Seriously? They couldn't possibly have fallen for it, right? They didn't believe this, did they? This is just like an embarrassing joke.
Who cares? Like, then that person should be sentence punished if he hadn't killed himself already. But I'm saying, go after.
Well, Hemant Mehta tentatively accepted the premise. I understand why he did. I don't think I would have, but he didn't want to argue that. He didn't want to like lean into that subject. He just wanted to like move on, I suppose. So I get it. You know what? I'm going to go after. So right now I'm trying to collect various things that I need to continue on with the game. So I'm going to go to the 5th sage first, I think.
The criminals who have done stuff, but the victims.
Yeah, but you're using an example.
There's no
of someone.
empathy.
Did that really listen to Pastor Thompson and get that idea? Like that seems kind of absurd.
It seems absurd for him to repeat your exact ideas verbatim, like word for word. He said this, and you think it's absurd to believe that this kid got these ideas from these people, or at least people like him? What a joke.
To suggest.
But here's a guy who got arrested before he did something, and you're basically saying, I'm wiping my hands clean of that guy.
Well, it's because I really didn't know him. So I had Oregon.
Talking about a kid that was in his church, Tyler something, and was planning an attack, basically.
Public broadcasting, which is like in NPR or maybe some, well, I think it's connected to, it's a government basically type broadcasting
They
group.
get federal funding, probably.
So, I mean,
talk about NPR. Sure. They get a little bit of federal funding. Yes.
I mean, he was fairly fair with the interview that he interviewed me about Tyler Dinsmore, but well, here's what I think, that they're directly trying to connect my preaching to him. That they've been trying to do this for a long time.
It's not hard to connect the dots.
But
no, it's easy.
Here's the thing, that he drove to my church from 4.5 hours away twice.
Do you think maybe that's a sign that violent extremists flock to you, that they're interested in what you're saying? Even if you are not breeding them, you are attracting them like moths to a flame. That should be enough. By the way, do you guys notice in Breath of the Wild that there's a curvature to the planet here? See it? The curvature. That's interesting, huh? Flat Earth debunked by Nintendo. Thank you, Nintendo.
And I literally did. So the day that he went soul winning with me, I rarely talked to him because I was giving the gospel to other people. It was just like, I didn't know him.
I don't know what he as though he's not a public figure and spreading information around to everybody.
Bother you that a guy
true,
like that
I didn't know him? Yeah, it's true. I didn't know him. He came to my church a couple times. Does that mean he's my church member? But that's what, you directly tried to connect me in your article about it.
He said you're his pastor.
Yeah, but does that make it true?
I mean, is it not true?
Is it true? Was I his pastor if he visited my church twice? Does that make me,
Yes. If somebody claims that you are their pastor and they've visited your church, yes, you are their pastor.
bother
the
you
church
that
member is someone that comes
you
on a
said
regular basis.
you said this guy had a bunch of red flags that you saw separate from all this stuff. Does it
as
bother
he
you?
came later, yes, I did see those things.
Does it bother you that he was attracted to your church? Like,
Well, it bothers me that he's connected to my church and it's directly trying to connect me to him when I don't agree with if he did do that.
Yes, he does. He does agree with what he did. He absolutely does.
That crime, which, just saying talk me out of it to me isn't a crime, but and apparently
they had reason to believe he was going to go through with it, which is why he was arrested.
Well, but people get arrested there was a guy that got arrested in Pennsylvania for just.
What are you really going to pretend that people just get arrested for nothing now? Is he like claiming that Tyler, whatever, didn't break the law? He just got arrested unjustly? Is he really going down this road? This is crazy. This is a joke. Did anybody really accept what this guy was saying, this pastor?
Saying, his First Amendment rights by a police officer, and they locked him up and threw him in jail.
I mean, what does it say about those people? This goes back to the point I was making earlier, which is if someone like that, if he drove 4 hours to come to your church or something, why do you think he was attracted to your church?
Well, lots of weirdos are attracted to churches and people that are.
Well, weirdos are attracted to churches that match their weirdo ideologies or ideals. Dude, where the hell is the in this mess here somewhere? There's an island, and if I come in from above, then I'll be able to see it more clearly. This is a part of the game you're not supposed to reach until the very, very end, but I always do it early because it has one of those capsule dispensers that are really, really useful. I did this before the end of the game the first time, too. I didn't even realize that you were supposed to wait to the end.
Distress and having problems come into churches. People that are bad come into churches.
There are churches everywhere. And
but here's the thing, that
like
would
yours.
What if I said someone listens to your podcast and regularly, and they maybe even subscribe to you? I don't know if that's possible, but they say they subscribe to you or something, and they look at one of our articles and they drive into a church and shoot and kill people.
All right, this is an important point that I want to make here, okay? Let me write this down because I want to bring this up here. Hang on. What if you had people on your podcast attack our church? Okay. There's a difference between me and these people. And the difference isn't in what we believe. I'm an atheist and he's a Christian, right? But I don't care. I have Christian followers, all kinds of Christian followers. That's not my issue. It's not about Christianity. In fact, the difference isn't even in how we view the gay community, or the important difference isn't. We do view the gay community differently, obviously. But the important difference here is our tactics for dealing with anything in society. Let me give you an example. In Louisiana, I think, right now, there is a bill that is sitting on the governor's desk as of this moment. I don't know if it's going to stay there, if it's going to move forward or what, but the bill just has to be signed into law by the governor, and the bill forces certain prisoners to get medical castration. I mean, like, with a scalpel, like cut things off of their body if they've committed certain crimes. Now, these people would say, great, I want that. In fact, I want to go a step further and just murder these people. My approach is to say, we don't know if these people are really guilty. There's a possibility that maybe they were innocent and falsely charged. 4% of the people on death row are 100% completely and totally innocent. Didn't do anything to anybody. There it is. Okay, I could not find the thing. Jesus Christ. Didn't do anything to anybody. And they were just walking along on the street, and they're charged with a crime out of nowhere. Sentenced to death and then executed. Imagine that shit. Sitting in jail, waiting for a death sentence, and then walking up to, the table on death row when you were completely innocent. Until that number is 0% instead of 4%. We can't accept any deaths like that. None. Who's trying to castrate people? Louisiana. Louisiana is trying to do that right now. In fact, they passed it, I believe, or they're about to. It went through the House and the Senate. It just has to be signed by the governor at this immediate moment. If that one doesn't pass in Louisiana, you can bet they're going to push it in other states. That's actually against the Constitution, the federal Constitution, bodily autonomy. But there are cases upon which laws are built. like Loving v. Virginia, which was, I believe that was the case that that legalized interracial marriage, for example. Roe v. Wade and some other similar cases dealing with race, they were all based on a single specific case. Like, those cases wouldn't have been able, or they wouldn't have been able to, like, desegregate marriages the way that they did if the Supreme Court had not ruled the way that it did in this older case. Now, these people are not trying to, when I say these people, I mean the legislators in Louisiana, and these guys right here, and anyone else that's politically involved on the far right who's pushing for this. People pushing for this are not trying to erase contraception bills or erase Roe v. Wade necessarily. They start out by erasing the bill that it was all based on. Once that bill is erased, now they can bring it to the court again and say, look, there's no reason to do this when this doesn't have any precedent to back it up. And it's a lot easier to erase the one above it now. Just like with Kennedy v. Bremerton, people may not even realize how detrimental that case was. You know, where the praying on the field and everything. If the coach wants to pray, I mean, that's kind of stupid and messed up, and it takes advantage of kids. That's not what was bad about the Kennedy v. Bremerton case. Coach wanted to pray on the field before games or after games or something. And it could be argued that he's, you know, watching who prays with him and selectively choosing people who believe the way that he does. That's not what was bad about it. What was bad about it is that it erased fundamental building blocks to the Lemon test, which is like a legal test to determine if a law can be passed and isn't interfering with separation of church and state. It erased large swaths of the Lemon test, of the wall between church and state, when they did that. That's why it was bad over anything else. And that's what these people are trying to do here. I mean,
is that really
the people in Louisiana legislature and everything else? But regarding the people on screen here, the NIFB, they don't value bodily autonomy at all. They don't care about your ability to make decisions for yourself. They want to end your life if you do something that they don't like. And you can sit there and say all you want that I don't want to be the one to do it. I want the government to be the ones to do it. You're arguing for the same thing. You want people dead if they don't line up with your values exactly. They don't want a melting pot. They don't want a mix of different cultures and values and ideals in America. They want one culture, value, and ideal in America. That's it. If you don't follow that, you should die. That's the issue here. That's what we're dealing with. That's the difference between me and him. I don't want anybody dead. I want everybody to be able to live their lives how they see fit. And even if I didn't, I don't want anyone dead anyway. That's not my tactic. That's the real issue. So if Hemant Mehta has some nutcase extremist listening to his podcast show up to their church, Hemant Mehta and I, and anybody else that I deal with specifically, can, in good conscience, say what I said did not inspire a violent hate attack, because he's actively calling for the deaths of people. I call for nonviolence at every single opportunity, every one.
Something, and they look at one of our articles and they drive into a church and shoot and kill people. Is that really your fault?
I'll answer that for you, because I think that has happened once, where someone who did some sort of crime, if you look at his likes on Facebook or something, and there were many, I was in that list. And then what I would do in that situation is, one, let me see if I've ever had any conversations with this person. The answer was no. And then the question is there anything I may have written or said that could have pointed this guy in the direction to think that what he did was okay? And when I did that, it's like, I cannot find anything that I've said. I can't find anything I've ever written that would have.
That's because Hemant Mehta doesn't advocate for violence against people. He always advocates for non-violence in every situation, just like me. Hemant Mehta's hands are clean no matter what happens. I'm confident that my hands are clean no matter what. I don't even advocate for hate, for that matter. I don't want anyone to hate anyone else. I'm drawing attention to the fact that others hate others, and that shouldn't be the case. I want society to be protected from these people. That doesn't mean I want them to have the death penalty. I don't. I just think that they should be removed from major platforms like YouTube, and they have. So free speech-wise, I'm happy with where they are right now. I think that they should be allowed to say anything, mostly, until they specifically incite violence. And until they do meet that line of inciting violence, they should be removed from specific platforms. If they want to build their own platform, then they're free to. That's my position on it.
Have pointed anyone in that direction. And I think if you look at the broader scope of everything I've done, I think that holds true. So I am able to live with that. Like, I didn't do anything that this guy would have found okay. In fact, I will go out of my way to condemn it repeatedly so that anyone listening knows I would never support anything like that. I don't hear that, though.
But that seems like the same viewpoint we have, because if one of my church members committed a crime like that, I would say that they shouldn't commit that crime and that was wrong. So I think
it's such a joke, dude. While he talks about hating gay people and wishing the death penalty on them, there is no fundamental difference between what these people are doing, wishing for the death penalty on people they hate, and wishing death upon people that they hate. I don't want the death penalty for anybody. I never advocate for the death penalty under any circumstances. Even the worst murderers, Jeffrey Dahmer, he should rot in jail. Getting the death penalty is getting out of it, in my opinion. Hitler checking out when he did is getting out of accountability for his crimes. He lived an incredible life of fame and power and hate. And then it just, it came to an end, and that's it. He didn't have to go to jail to face consequences for his actions, if that's how you feel about it. If that's the argument that'll get you, go with that one. Personally, I'm not interested in retributive justice anyway. I don't want anybody to suffer. I just don't want anyone to I don't want anyone to commit these crimes in the first place. If they go to jail, it's to protect society from them.
That's the same thing. And I don't think it's fair to hold public figures responsible for what some potential crazy individual may do, just because they happen to listen to some of their preaching or...
Well, I guess he's never heard of stochastic terrorism then, has he? It's been a while since I've talked about stochastic terrorism. You never heard of that before. Stochastic terrorism, here's how it's defined. It's when a political or media figure publicly demonizes a person or group in a way that inspires supporters of the figure to commit a violent act against the target of the communication. So, for example, Donald Trump demonizing Hillary Clinton nonstop, won't shut up about how evil she is and how she needs to die and how she should be locked up and she should never see the light of day again and all that junk. Stochastic terrorism. Stochastic basically means statistically. So it's statistically likely that some lone wolf nutcase is going to come in and do something psychotic if you demonize somebody enough. Even when I zero in on somebody specific, I'm not demonizing them as in they need to be removed from the earth permanently. I'm not saying that I want them dead, ever. Very different. Ruby Freeman was a more direct victim of Trump's lies. Yeah, that's a good point. Ruby Freeman. She's a woman she's an election worker, and her mom, I forget her mom's name, or maybe it was her daughter that had a different name. Anyway, they were working together. They pass each other a ginger mint. One of them passes the other a ginger mint while they're counting ballots. Trump posts the video on his Twitter, I think, claims that it was a USB stick that they passed with a whole bunch of, with a virus, I guess, to add votes to the counter, or to the counting machines or whatever. As a result, she had to get FBI protection. She had to leave her home. She's a pillar of the community. She went to church. She knew everybody. She worked with everybody. And that all came to an abrupt end after that because she's getting violent threats from extremists that were credible. That's stochastic terrorism. Is anything that I ever do stochastic terrorism? Is anything that Hemant Mehta ever does stochastic terrorism? No. First of all, and probably most importantly, I never target normal individuals who don't want to be in the spotlight like Trump did. If they just want to like live their lives and do their thing and not, and no, they're not like hurting society in any way, I leave them alone. That's it. Like Barron Trump, for example. He's probably a Republican, right? But he has not entered society openly and officially as a Republican. He has not espoused ideas that his dad has espoused. I'm going to leave him alone until he does. And when he does, I'm not going to demonize him and say he should die or any of this shit. I'm going to criticize the things that he does. Anyway, that's the difference. These people want to draw like a comparison between the two. They're not the same. They were never the same in any way. I honestly get so sick of hearing people like Jonathan Shelley, Steven Anderson, and others saying, well, everything that I'm doing is exactly what you're doing. No, it's not. Is it still domestic terrorism if is it still domestic terrorism if it isn't a supporter, but someone affected by the supporter's community? I'm not sure what you mean. You mean, no, I mean, I would say any attack on anybody is domestic terrorism, right? Or it can very easily be, anyway, if it's not, or a hate crime at the very least. But I would say it depends on what you mean. I would have to think about it in more detail. Anyway, yeah. This is just like him obfuscating and pretending that he's 100% completely and totally innocent in every situation. It's just a joke.
Visit their blog or read their articles or watch their videos. Like, everyone has to take personal responsibility for their actions. And I don't think that it's fair to assume that any one individual is directly responsible, because there's
okay, well, you're wrong.
Multiple factors here. I mean, what they're reading online, there's a lot of...
Yeah, you're right, but we can draw a direct link from Libs of TikTok talking about Boston Children's Hospital and the number of bomb threats that are issued to Boston Children's Hospital. There's a direct link between the two. So it's not as ambiguous or, like formless or shapeless as he wants to portray here.
Multiple factors here. I mean, what they're reading online, there's a lot of websites that are very radicalized online. There's other individuals in this person's life.
And what's your fear from them seeing something radical online? Because they're getting the idea from someone.
Oh, I love it.
I just don't believe in thought crimes. So, like, if someone commits a crime...
It's not a thought crime. This isn't about thought crimes. Free speech is not 100% completely and totally free, nor should it be completely free. Libel and, defamation, libel, slander, whatever, those are not acceptable, and they shouldn't be. You shouldn't be allowed to destroy someone's reputation, livelihood, and everything while knowingly, intentionally lying about them. So those are illegal. I don't think they're illegal, but you're allowed to sue for them anyway. They're not covered under full free speech protections, number one. And number two, if you are directly leading to imminent violence in someone's life, like, exciting a mob and inspiring that mob to get violent, like physically breach doors and murder people, that is not legal either. I don't know how Donald Trump got away with it, but anyway.
They're held responsible, but, I don't think that the individuals, unless they're having direct calls of violence, like if they're calling for violence directly and you can prove that, or they maybe assisted that person in some way, financially, verbally, or counseled them, and you can prove that, then that person should also be held responsible. But just listening to general preaching or taking out of context or taking your post out of context, like, people shouldn't be held responsible for that.
Hey, and when he was arrested,
It's not taking it out of context. He's following exactly what they said. I want this guy dead. And he said, okay, I can do that. Dude, I am getting bodied by this guy. He has one hit left. I'm just getting, destroyed over here.
They wanted me to do, some funding to help pay for his attorneys and lawyer fees. And since I didn't know what happened, I didn't do that.
I'm actually surprised.
I didn't just jump to his side and say, yeah, just do whatever you want. I didn't know. I didn't know that, when it happened, I didn't know, what the truth was about the matter. And so here's the thing that I do.
And would he change his mind now is my question.
I don't judge the matter before I hear it. And so I don't know exactly all the details.
He literally spent the first half of this talking about how gay people are, they all take advantage of children, all of them. That's what he spent his time doing, and saying that we need to jail, preferably kill, the LGBT community because they are going to take advantage of kids if we don't. You don't judge things ahead of time? What? Can you say that one more time for me?
You know, when it happened, I didn't know like what the truth was about the matter. And so here's the thing that I do. I don't judge the matter before I hear it.
Yeah, that's called special pleading. He is giving special conditions, special circumstances and allowances for people on his side that he doesn't give to others.
And so I don't know exactly all the details even of the case. I actually thought about, you know, just buying you have to pay for the case online or whatever, and then I just didn't do it. So
I mean, sometimes church members do things that we don't like, and it makes us look bad, or it makes Christ look bad. And, you know, that's unfortunate, and we don't want that to be the case. And I think that it's pretty clear from most of the sermons we preach on these topics that there are clear statements in those sermons that say, look, we're not saying do this. We just want the government to change. We want them to go back to...
Like, there are people on the left who are effectively the left-wing version of these guys. There aren't very many of them. I mean, certainly not in the United States. I'm trying to think of an example. I'm thinking like communists. No, not necessarily. There's a specific group that's like on the left and so extreme that they want people dead. I'm sure that there's probably somebody on the left. We'll put it that way. I'm sure there's someone on the left who wishes death upon their enemies. And I can confidently say that is a strategy that I do not agree with, that I will not abide by. I will not accept it. It's a strategy problem over anything else.
Older laws they used to enforce. And so, you know, I'm not going to feel bad. I'm not going to feel personally responsible if someone does something that I totally disagree with and have preached against verbally.
Yeah.
But if someone breaks the law, if someone does something that you say, I wasn't telling you to do that, it would be a lot easier to legitimately wipe your hands clean of it if it wasn't so damn easy to make that connection between.
Yeah, so we make these connections all the time. In court, what he's doing, he's trying to confuse and obfuscate his motivations, his intent, right? And intent is very difficult to prove in a court of law, but we can prove intent in a court of law. Donald Trump, for example, we'll just use him for a second. At every turn, he just says something. Boy, I really wish that blah. I really wish that I had lower taxes. I really wish that this money would stay in my account. And his accountant says, got it. And Trump says, you know what? I feel like you deserve a raise. Boy, I really wish that this witness would not testify. Let me give you a raise just because, completely unconnected. The mob did the same thing. We know how to charge this stuff and determine if intent. It's called mens rea. The way we determine intent is by looking at the pattern of behavior. They do something that looks like they want this thing. When they see the results of what they're doing, that it's producing this thing, they say it even more. They double down. They do it harder. They do it multiple times. Really, just establishing a pattern of behavior is what you need to establish mens rea, or establish intent, basically. Now, these guys are advocating for all the same shit that right-wing extremists, violent shooters are advocating for. And they know that because they have been brought up in multiple court cases by attackers. People tweet at them and they ask them, hey, please fundraise for this guy's charges. Please help him. Please prevent him from facing accountability for what he did. You want the gay community dead? He does too. That is intent. Hemant Mehta clearly does not have an established pattern of behavior that encourages people to do that. He has, at every turn, denounced that behavior. That is different. So they can pretend that they don't have the intent all they want, but in a court of law, that would be shot to shit in 5 seconds flat. Just like Donald Trump's intent claims would be shot to shit, and were in his fraud charges.
Wipe your hands clean of it if it wasn't so damn easy to make that connection between their actions and what you celebrate. Like, the reason they're making those connections is because we know what you have said in the past. Like, had the guy gone through and killed people...
But I didn't say to do that, though.
No, you didn't say to do that, but you would have been like, yeah, but it's a good thing that happened.
Well, I'm saying...
He literally said that a few minutes ago, or earlier in the, the talk. He literally said it's a good thing it happened.
Say to do that, but you would...
He even said that God was like moving this guy's hands to accomplish his will, basically. What was it he said? Yeah, here it is. Here it is. 10 minutes. So we are currently at 2. Yeah, I got to write that one down. So 10 minutes in. Let me just skip to 10 minutes. Hang on. We're at 32 minutes. Right. Just a few seconds back here.
It's as evil as those people because he committed murder.
While at the same time celebrating the fact that the victims are no longer here.
Well, sometimes God uses bad people to take other bad people out.
You catch that? Huh. What an interesting thing for him to say immediately before saying what he just did.
You say, I wasn't telling you to do that. It would be a lot easier to legitimately wipe your hands clean of it if it wasn't so damn easy to make that connection between their actions and what you celebrate.
It's honestly hard not to make that connection. Wow. This is my least favorite shrine, or second least favorite probably, because it took me so long to do it the first time around. God, I hated this shrine.
Like, the reason they're making those connections is because we know what you have said in the past. Like, had the guy gone through and killed people...
But I didn't say to do that, though.
No, you didn't say to do that, but you would have been like, yeah, but it's a good thing that happened.
Well, I'm saying it's a good thing that they're not around to molest children. That's what I said.
And that's my point. Like, they didn't molest children. You're just
You
like
don't know
making
that,
up a
though.
thing.
He doesn't know that it's true. Are you hearing this? Did you hear what this guy just did? I gotta take this one down too. I'm sorry, man. So he affords the most grace to people who are on his political side, people who threaten members of the LGBT community or kill them. He gives those people who attack them as much leeway as he possibly can. Says, well, we don't know what he was planning on doing. But he says the gay community automatically takes advantage of kids. This is special pleading at its finest. I was just thinking the other day about how I haven't talked about special pleading in like 5 years. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's just me like seeing it now that I gave it some thought. But it's crazy that that's like basically all this guy is doing now.
But you don't know that.
So
though.
going back to the adoptive parents and stuff, I'm trying to figure out, you want to go back to some old school code of some old school law.
Well, in 2003, it was illegal to be a homosexual in the state of Texas. So until
sodomy was illegal.
Yes, homosexuality was
being gay is not
a crime.
Being gay is not a crime. Acting on it was in Texas.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah. Committed.
Yeah, I'm not even sure that was enforceable. It certainly wasn't enforced if it was enforceable. But Michigan also had sodomy laws and stuff. I don't think that stuff is enforceable. Could be wrong.
The act of homosexuality was a crime. You're
Yes.
right. Being gay wouldn't be a crime by itself.
Right.
But if you go further back, even into the 1800s, there was still states that had statutes of the death penalty specifically for sodomy, and that just slowly weaned itself. It was like 20-year prison
I'm
sentence.
not arguing that
things
didn't
like
happen.
So I'm just saying.
Yeah, why? So he wants to go back to a time when we didn't have any of the technology or knowledge or power that we have today as a species. He wants to go back to a more primitive time where people can be killed for doing anything, or for doing any specific thing, for doing something so minor as just living their life, and not just between two consenting adults or just doing their thing.
Saying I would believe that our government should go back to.
Tell me how that works. Hypothetically, let's say you're in Texas. If their legislature wanted to pass a law that they could get around Supreme Court precedents or whatever, how would that even work in practice? I think you said earlier, you would vote for it if it was on the ballot or something.
Yes.
How would that work in practice? What would you like to see the government do?
So I think we'd have to first overturn the Lawrence versus Texas ruling.
That's the sodomy ruling.
Which would be a trigger law for Texas because they still have on the books, I think it's Texas Penal Code 21.06 is the crime for committing homosexuality. I would want them to then pass new legislation changing the punishment to the death penalty specifically.
For people who have
committed the act of sodomy. So not.
And how do you prove that exactly? You're going to put cameras in everyone's bedroom or something? Talk about big and invasive government, right? Jesus Christ, dude.
Not being homosexual, but just if someone commits the act of sodomy with male or female with female, then they would be put to death. Of course.
If you're unaware of what sodomy means specifically, it means any sexual act that is not intended to or could not produce a baby. So that means like, literally anything except for one very specific form. That means stuff even between married couples, like a man and a woman would be banned. Some things. That's what that is, actually. That's what that means in the Texas bills and stuff. So he very obviously is not for smaller government and freedom of all of this other stuff. He wants to ban and regulate people's lives. Don't let him pretend that he wants to have limited government and more speech, free speech, and all this other stuff. No.
I believe in a fair trial. They should be given
Well, let's say
opportunity.
they did it. I won't argue that. Let's say they did it.
Yes.
There's no question of guilt. Let's say they have kids that they adopted or something.
Yes.
Like, how does that play out? How do we kill them? What happens?
Take the kids and put them into foster care, presumably, right? Because that's super pro-life, and that's definitely helping people and making society better. Absolutely.
To their kids. Like,
What happens to
I
anybody's
wanna go
kids after
down.
they get killed? And like, if they're a murderer, what happens to their kids? Like, what happened to OJ's kids when he had to go to jail? I mean, what happened? And he
Governor Perry put over 300,
didn't
I think
kill
over
his
300
wife,
people to
but
death.
then didn't he end up going to jail for something else, right? But like, what happens to anybody's kids that gets, that goes
Obviously,
to
it's
jail?
sad for kids
It
to lose their parent for any reason. And
if your parent's a murderer, though, that is very different from two people having sex.
No, it's not.
No, they don't view it as different.
well, I agree that they're different, but according to the Bible, the death penalty is applied to about, and I preached a sermon on this. I can't remember the exact number, maybe like 16, depending on how you define them, like 16 different crimes are worthy of the death penalty in the Old Testament. And I believe they should still be enforced today. And in fact,
Okay, well, Jesus disagreed with you. Jesus said people should follow 2 new commands. Love your neighbor as yourself and love God with your whole heart, mind, soul, body, and strength, or whatever. So he's contradicting Jesus by saying this. I don't know how else to take it.
the early colonies, they did have all of them except for adultery usually, which I still believe adultery should be put to death too. But, you said how? Well, the Bible uses stoning. A modern version of that to me is a gun. It's essentially a similar form of stoning in the sense
quicker
that
and less painful.
it's probably less painful. So in that regard, it may be more efficient. So, the firing squad is a reasonable method. I don't think that
Don't you love how he's using this word reasonable here? This is doing a lot of legwork.
it should be necessary, like any more painful than it has to be. Death obviously can be painful. But yeah, I think Texas should use the firing squad, and it should be immediate. It shouldn't be like 15 years down the road. We shouldn't, as taxpayers, have to.
He just said they want a fair trial. You can't have a fair trial unless you give it time for them to be, for it to be sufficiently adjudicated. You have to give it time. You have to give witnesses time to come forward, and you have to get evidence together and all of that stuff. So he doesn't want a fair trial then, is what he's saying.
Wait for justice to be served. So, we don't need prisons the way that we have them today. I think that there's a lot of things broken there. But yes, I believe that that's what should happen.
We don't want prisons the way we have them today. Is he saying Is he saying we should just kill people then? Like, get rid of them entirely? No more, any crime that you commit, any people in prison should just be taken out? FYI, this is actually how it started in Germany. Seriously, in the 1920s and 30s, there was a movement called the eugenics movement, and they viewed themselves as being on the left, not the right, which they were actually on. They were trying to, society, it was a cultural movement. So leaders in the movement were trying to produce the best offspring, basically. They were trying to produce the prettiest kids and the strongest, they were trying to produce the prettiest and the strongest children, for example. They'd take them to beauty pageants and they would get high grades for good teeth, low grades for bad teeth, that kind of thing. And, I guess there's nothing wrong with like desiring a pretty kid or whatever, but genes don't work that way. Much to these people's dismay. One of the chief researchers on the eugenics project was using fruit flies to study genes. Punnett squares, is that what they're called? I think that's what they're called. The little things that determine which genes, recessive or dominant or whatever, you know, the little squares that you learned about in high school. The guy was using those squares to breed fruit flies with longer wings and shorter wings, red eyes or black eyes, big bodies or small bodies, that kind of thing. And he was doing this at a research facility, like in a college, in a university. And he realized, all these gigantic shelves with different fruit flies of varying types. He eventually realized that genetics does not work that way exactly. Punnett squares will give you a general idea of what you want to accomplish and what you're likely to see, but it really doesn't work the way that people seem to think it does. It's not as simple as you're blonde with blue eyes and your wife is blonde with blue eyes, so you're going to have a kid that's blonde with blue eyes. It's not that simple. So anyway, the point here is that the eugenics movement moved from that, which is weird but okay, to the disabled should be either castrated or put down as a mercy, like mercy killing, like putting down a dog who's terribly injured. That's the kind of mindset that the eugenics movement was in at the time. And it was widespread. It was a widespread movement. It was even in America. It wasn't just Germany. The argument in favor of bodily autonomy would completely nullify the eugenics movement. So I value bodily autonomy over basically anything else, nearly anything else. Anyway, the people who were arguing in favor of the eugenics movement were trying to castrate or kill disabled people, mentally disabled, physically disabled, whatever. And it came to a point where Germany was piss poor. They had nothing. Hyperinflation was completely out of control. It was the most extreme example of inflation that the world has ever seen in recorded history. And Germany said, well, we're already putting down the mentally and physically disabled. Why don't we just put down the elderly too? Because they're just like a drain on our resources. We have all these homes that they live in, and they're just sucking us dry. These people, good Aryan Germans, could be eating this food and producing stuff for farms and things like that. So that's what they did. They started putting down, quote unquote, the elderly. And that moved to, there are 6,000 people at the top that control everything. They have all of the money, they write all of the laws and all of that stuff, and they are responsible for World War I. So instead of our men being gassed in trenches, maybe we should have gassed the 6,000 people at the top to prevent 2 million men from being gassed in the trenches fighting World War I. That was like the line of logic. When you look at it that way, it wasn't an extreme thing necessarily. It was a logical, procedural, step-by-step move toward a specific ideal, a specific belief. And you just take it one step further each time. That was the eugenics movement. And what was the
day? I think there's a lot of things broken there. But yeah.
Right. That was the eugenics movement. And what this guy here is advocating for, if you remember, was seemingly getting rid of prisons, emptying prisons, executing any prisoners effectively, right? Certainly executing gay people, presumably because he's trapped in this eugenics mindset where he thinks that being gay is genetic, ? I'm not even sure. And if they kill off all the gay people, then they won't have that problem anymore. His solutions that he's proposing are pretty far into the steps that were taken to arrive Nazis to the conclusion that they need to, take out specific people. Like I said, the scientist that was working on this stuff originally gave it up after he realized that this just isn't how it works. It's a simplistic, primitive view of biology and how it works. Anyway. Output, welcome. Any sexual act that cannot result in pregnancy. I wonder if that includes having vanilla with someone who is sterile. I would say yes. These people probably wouldn't say yes because I'm sure they have lots of older people and people with different. They're not after people who commit sodomy. They're after a very specific subset of people that they do not like. And they're using all of this legal underpinning to legitimize and prop up their extremist conspiracy theories, for lack of a better term. Anyway, Kind of interesting how all that worked.
Yes, I believe that that's what should happen. And of course, I don't believe anybody should take the law in their own hands. Nobody should execute anyone without going through the proper channels, having a fair process, getting a chance for defense. There should be at least 2 or 3 witnesses. No one should ever be condemned based on one witness testimony. And so, that's God's system, and I think that it still works today.
Oh my God, this is a Bible thing. At least 2 or 3 witnesses, and a witness includes the person who did it. If you can identify 2 people who don't like somebody, and they can claim that that person is gay and they witnessed it, that's enough evidence to execute them. That's the world that he's leading us to. Seriously, we've been down this path before. We've seen how this ends.